Hi guys, thanks for joining me today. I'm Marilyn in Making with Marilyn. Now in today's video, I'm going to work on a sublimation project, and it's similar to one that I've done in the past on my channel. So before, I did some 10-inch in diameter wind spinners. Now these are sublimation blanks, and so with the sublimation blanks, you're going to use sublimation paper and a printer that you've either converted to sublimation or it was meant to be a sublimation printer. But the difference in today's video is these are 8 inches wide or 8 inches in diameter. So even if you don't have a wide format printer, you can use them on your regular normal width sublimation printer. Now for me, I have some 13 by 19 inch paper, and so I'm going to get 2 images on one sheet of paper, and I'm still going to print it on my wide format printer. If you don't have a wide format printer, just put one design on one sheet of paper, print it, and then put the same design on another piece of paper and print it. You need 2 designs so that you get it on the front and the back. Let me talk about what I'll use in today's video. So the first thing is I'm going to use these luxurious wind spinners. Again, these are 8 inch in diameter. And in this package, I got 5 8 inch in diameter wind spinners. They are individually wrapped. Now, since they are individually wrapped, they don't put that plastic coating on that's really hard to get off. I like that about this brand. Now, I haven't used the brand yet, so I can't tell you the quality yet. We're going to see that in a few minutes. But you have 5 wind spinners, and then inside the plastic you also have the hardware. The other thing that you receive is some heat-resistant tape, and then also in here there is a very nice little pamphlet on the instructions. You don't always get instructions with sublimation things, and there's some good information in here, so I really appreciate that. Now, if these turn out nice, I will put a link to these in the video description. You can get those off of Amazon. And then for the sublimation paper, again, you can either use 2 pieces of 8.5 by 11. In my case, I'm going to use this larger paper. Now this is Koala brand. When I first started sublimating, this is the brand I started with. So I bought some for regular size, and then I bought the oversized. So for today, I'm going to use 1 sheet of the large paper, and I'll get both designs on the same sheet. In addition to that, I'm going to use some heat-resistant tape. I'm still going to clean them with some rubbing alcohol and a paper towel. I don't know that that's necessary. I have a heat-resistant glove that I'll use. Now, if you have any sublimation tumblers, you probably got a pair of these with that. If not, I'll put a link to where you can just buy a set of 2 off of Amazon. And then lastly, I'm going to use my ruler. Of course, I'm going to use my printer, I'm going to use my computer, and I'm going to use a design off of Creative Fabrica. Now to me, I think it's really important when you are choosing a design for wind spinners that you focus on the whole wind spinner and that you focus separately on this inside piece. For that reason, I want to measure not only the outside, but the inside as well. I have seen some wind spinner designs where it really doesn't break it down between what's on this outside and what's in here, and I didn't think they looked all that good. I want something where the focus fits within this inside part, and then everything else is just bonus. So let me measure this and see how large that inside piece is. It is slightly over 5 inches, and so when I go to make my design, or when I go to print my design, I'm going to show you a trick that I use to make sure they come out nice. Now, I know I have too many things on my desktop, but hopefully within the next few videos, I'll have this cleaned up some. But to cover over that, let me go ahead and open up Inkscape. Now, Inkscape is a free design software, and when I first started out, that's what I used. I love the fact that it was free, and so I learned how to use it at that time. Since then, I use some other design softwares, but in case you don't have a design software, let me show you how you do this in Inkscape. Now, the first thing I want to do is I want to make sure this is the correct size of paper for the paper that I'm going to use. Or I want to make sure this is the correct size of template for the paper I'm going to use. Because when you're printing from design softwares, you need to make sure the paper is the correct size. So I'm going to go up here to File, and I will click on Document Properties. I can see right here, mine is defaulted to A4. If you want to see this in inches, you just click here and go up to inches. So let's click on the A4 and see what other sizes I have available. Mine is 13 inches by 19 inches. And I'm looking at the package right now, and it says that is 330 millimeters by 483 millimeters. I don't see that option anywhere on here, so I'm going to go to one that's close, click on that, and then I can just back over what's in here and put the right sizes. So instead of 353, I'm going to put 330, and then I'll go down to the height by just pressing the tab button. And instead of 500, I'm going to put 483. Now let's hit enter, and then I want to change it to inches to do a reality check. Okay, so that's pretty close. Now that that's the right size, I'm going to click on this red circle up here to X out of that, and my paper size is the right size now. All right, let's go ahead and find my design and drag it in. It's right up here. I thought it was super cute. You drag it onto your paper, and then right here are defaults for my machine, and I've never changed those, so I just stick with the defaults for Inkscape, and I say OK. All right, let's move this back up where you can see everything. And because the dots are around it, I can tell this is selected. With it selected, I want to go up here. First of all, I want to lock the proportions. And I want to see what that is in inches. Okay, it's way too large, so let's make this, I'm going to do 8.2 inches because I like for my design to be a little bit larger than my sublimation blank. So remember that I said it was important, to me at least, that the 5 inches in the middle focus on what I want it to focus on. And you're going to understand better in a minute. So I want to put a circle on there. So I go right over here to create circles, ellipses, and arcs. Click on that. And then I'm just going to drag this into a circle. Now let me show you why you just see the outline. With that circle selected, I'm going to go up to Object, Fill and Stroke. And so it defaults to what you used the last time. I was playing around with this design earlier, and so that's what it's defaulted to. If you're making a circle for the first time, it's probably going to look more like this. It's going to have a solid fill, and it probably won't have any stroke. Now I want to go to the select tool so I can select that circle and work with it. Let's just drag it off, make it easier. Now remember, the important part for me was that inside 5 inches. Since the width is different from the height, I'm going to go ahead and unlock this so I can change each of those independently, and I'm going to change those to 5 inches. Now I can go ahead and lock it. Since I can't see through that, I want to go ahead and get rid of the fill and add a stroke. The stroke is a line around the outside. With it selected, I go to Object, Fill and Stroke. And then let me show you, if I go ahead and start with the fill, and I just say X out, don't have any fill, you can't even see it's there. So now I'm going to go to the stroke paint, and I'll click on this blue, which means it's going to be a solid stroke. My stroke, which you can see right over here, is set to black. I could change that if I want to, but I'm fine with the black. Okay, so let me click back on it and drag it up. So now I'm going to select both items by dragging around them, and then I'm going to line those both on the vertical and the horizontal axis. Okay, so if this is the way I print my design, of course without this black circle, to me, Santa's head is in the wrong place. So I would rather Santa's head be in that part of the circle. But if I simply print this at 8.2 inches and I have that in the middle, then I'm not going to have a big enough image up here to cover my design. So let's go ahead and make this larger. And then I'll drag this to where I think it should be. Handy. Let's go ahead and click on the circle, make an 8-inch circle. So I'm going to hit Select Tool, and then I'll unlock this, and I'll make the height and the width 8 inches. Now is where it's important to have the two circles, and I want to have them aligned. So with the outside one selected, I hold Shift, add the inside one. Now we're going to line those up. And we also are going to group them. So here's where I want Santa's head to be. And so I can see I still need to stretch my actual design some more. I'm going to make sure the proportions are locked, and then I'm going to stretch it this direction. I'm going to overstretch it so that then I can kind of move where Santa's head is again. Okay, I am much happier with that, and so at this time I can get rid of those black circles. I know this is going to work for the way I like it. Now, because there's a front and the back, I need to select it, hit Command-C for copy, Command-V for paste. There's my second one, and then I'm also going to mirror that. So with it selected, I go to Object and flip horizontal. Now the last thing I need to do is see if I can get both of these to print on this one piece of paper. And I can. And I'm ready to print. Now I'm going to print on my Epson EcoTank 15,000. It was not meant to be a sublimation printer, but instead of putting the ink that came with it into where the ink goes, I use sublimation ink instead. And in this printer, I have Hippo ink. So I'm going to go File, Print. I'm selecting my printer. Then I'm going to go to Page Setup, and I would just want this on one side. The other thing I do is I make sure it's on color, and then I go to Advanced and I hit High. Now I am still using the default drivers that came with this. I didn't update them so you can do a lot more fancy things, but so far it's worked well for me. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and click Print. Now here's my sublimation design, and it looks good, but if you're used to doing sublimation, you know that it's going to be a little bit muted until you add heat. Once I add heat to this and put it on my blank, that's going to really brighten up. The other thing is, I want to point out, there's some little white things. There's a white streak here, a white thing here, and a couple of white things there. I don't know if those are meant to be like reflections like you would see in pictures, but what I can tell you is it's not from the printer. That was in the actual design. Now I'm going to move this aside because the first thing I want to do is clean this, and I don't want to accidentally get any of my alcohol on that paper. So I put the paper on the table beside me, and I'm going to spray some 90% rubbing alcohol on this paper towel. Remember, with this brand, you do not have to remove that film, and I really like that feature. I'm going to go ahead and clean both sides, and then I'm going to make sure that I dry off my cutting mat. Then I'm just going to dangle this in the air for just a minute to make sure it's really good and dry. Now, while I'm waiting for that to dry, I'm going to look at this little flyer you get with these. It says you need a sublimation printer with sublimation ink, your sublimation press of choice, some sublimation paper, some parchment paper to protect your heat press. And I'm actually going to use butcher paper instead of parchment paper because it's less expensive and it'll work on this too. And then some heat resistant tape, which remember they included in this package. I have this on my dispenser, so I'm going to go ahead and use it. Now, one thing they don't mention here, which I would say you need to use, is a heat-resistant glove. Okay, then it gives you the steps: create your design, print it, prepare your blank. It does say wipe off any dirt or oils, but look, you don't have to peel anything. Love that. Position your design, sublimate it at 385 degrees for 1 minute 45 seconds. Then it says do it on the other side, so you're doing steps 4 and 5 twice, and then let it cool down. And then it says if you're more of a visual person, you can use this QR code, you can scan it, and then you can get probably some videos. I'm not really sure because I didn't do that. It also lets you know that you have 30 free templates if you want them. And then here's the founder of this company, Mayor, and he's just saying thank you. And he's asking that you go ahead and review it on Amazon. Okay? So I want to go ahead and cut these two pieces apart. Also, I didn't read it, but he suggested in there that you do flip your second image, and so that's why I did that today. Now, when we design this on the computer, remember the main focus is up in this area here. And so I want to try to place my wind spinner as well as I can on this, or as good as I can on this, or whatever the word would be. If I wanted to take the time, I could cut out an 8-inch circle and then cut away the excess here. That probably would be smart because you'd get it more precise, but I think I can get it to work fine. Now with these spinners, you have your hole up here for your hardware, or it could be up here for your hardware, and then you have one at the bottom. You can dangle these together, so you can chain them together and have multiples together, or you can hang a dangle from it, or you don't have to hang anything from it. Now, because you can kind of see through it, it helps you a little bit. And I just know my design or my blank needs to go up in this area. I'm going to try to have the little thing where the hardware goes straight up and down so that my image is straight. Now be careful you don't scratch your image because the sublimation paper with the ink on it can be scratched. Okay, I'm going to try to hold that in place, and then I'm just going to peel this back and kind of look and see what it looks like. I'm going to go ahead and push this up as far as I can without running it off my design. Because Santa's face is the most important thing to me. All right, I'm going to count that good. And I'm going to use just a couple of pieces of tape. And then because I forgot about the butcher paper until I read that pamphlet, I need to go grab that. I didn't show you that in the video intro where I talked about what I'm using. I'm going to probably put 2 pieces of butcher paper under it, because when you turn this over and you're pressing it, all this excess ink is going to go onto whatever you're pressing on. I don't want to ruin the pad to my heat press, and so I'm just going to be a little extra. I'm going to put 2 pieces under it. I'll put 1 piece on top of it. So I'm going to grab that butcher paper, and then I'm going to go ahead and get my heat press turned on. The instructions said 385, and when that's up to temperature, I'll be back. Now the other thing, while that's heating up, I'm going to cut away this excess, and the only reason I'm doing that is to save on butcher paper. I won't have to have quite as big a piece. Now that my heat press is up to 385, I'm ready to go ahead and press this. Now here's an issue. I'm using my HTV Ront Auto Press. It only goes up to 99 seconds. I'm supposed to be pressing these for 1:45, so 105 seconds. Hopefully those extra 6 seconds won't make a big difference. Okay, have 2 pieces of butcher paper here, and it's pretty wide. So I'm going to try to get away with doing the first one on one side, move it over, doing the other side on the other side of the paper. Let's see if that works. Now, you want to have paper side up. And then I also want my design centered as much as possible under the heat press. Now, I forgot to put that piece of paper on top, so I went ahead and I opened up my press really quickly, added it in. Hopefully none bled through the top of that paper or outside the paper onto the Teflon thing that's covering my heat press. It happened so fast I don't think it did, but I'll check it later. Now there's just a few seconds left, so I'm going to go ahead and put my heat resistant glove on. Now let me show you why it's important that you protect the pad of your heat press. Let me lift this off the paper, and then I'll show you the paper. Look how much ink is on that. So there's the first layer of paper. And I don't really see any on the second layer, but I'm still going to use 2 layers. Paper's cheap. Heat pad presses are not. Well, they're not too expensive, but paper's a whole lot less expensive. Okay, I'm going to let this cool down for just a minute. And I think I have my glove on the wrong hand. Let me change hands. You can maneuver this a lot with the paper. but I definitely want to hold on to it with my gloved hand. Okay, let's go ahead and take this off. And the reason I let it cool down just a little bit is so that I don't shift it. Ooh, that was hot. I don't shift it while it's still really, really hot. Because if it's hot enough that it can sublimate, then you can shift it along your paper and you can actually cause blurring or ghosting. Okay, this is cute. There it is so far. I think I did pretty well on getting Santa's head in a good place. And then the back is still white. So let me go ahead and do the second side. Now, I want to show you, it was super easy to line it up the second time because the image comes out in the same place. So you can see through these open lines, and that really helps you get that second side lined up. So let me show you, while that's cooking, I went ahead and I cut away the parts that had ink on them. I had almost enough to cover all the way under it in 2 layers. One layer was a little bit short, so I cut a little of the excess clean off and just placed that in. All right, I have that out of the press. I'm going to let it sit for just a minute. Ooh, that was hot. I'm going to let it sit for a few minutes. Now, I took the Teflon off, and I don't see any ink on there, thank goodness, but just be a little bit more careful than I was. All right, let's see how this turned out. It has cooled down almost to room temperature. So I went downstairs, had something to drink, spent about 10 minutes down there, and here it is. It looks great. I don't even know which side I just did, but both sides look great. So now it's time to bend this and get the hardware on. And so what I like to do is, I like to try not to pull too much out here. So it's a little tricky, but I'm going to hold where there's more support. So there's, the support is here and down here. So I'm going to hold there, and then I'm going to turn that inside one. And as you turn it, see the other ones start to move with it. And you can bend them as much or as little as you want. I think that's a bit much. All right, so let me go ahead and bend it back some. That is crazy, the amount that I just bent that. But if you like it, you could do it that way. I don't think I like it. Again, I'm really pushing where this spine is and not out here. Okay, I think that is much better. So let me go ahead and put this hardware on. It just has this little clip. You have to push it in with your thumb. You probably can't see that very well, but when you get these, if you get these, you'll see it's easy to do. The main thing is try not to scratch it along your wind spinner so you don't scratch any of that coating off. Now, in theory, that was really easy to do, but my thumb's not that strong, so it took me just a little bit to get that on there, but look how pretty that is. I think the design is well placed, I think the colors look great, and I like the amount of bend that I ended up doing on this. I like it, and I think my friend's gonna love it. When we were growing up in our little hometown, if Santa Claus couldn't make an event, maybe he had a conflict in his schedule, my friend's dad was one of his main helpers. He would step in and he would save the day. And so Santa Claus has a very special place in her heart, and hopefully she loves this.